I was like, let's be the first company in the world to just solely focus commercial music for creators. Then we got something special.
What's going on? Welcome back to another video, and it's a really special one this week. It's something completely different for the channel. This week I'm going to be interviewing Paul Sampson, the CEO and co-founder of Licked. Now, unless you've been living under a rock and not seen any of my previous videos, I'll give you a quick overview of what Licked is. Licked is an online platform where creators like you and me can license commercial tracks. Real commercial music that you'd hear on the radio, all singing, all dancing, the proper stuff. Not production music, not royalty-free tracks, none of that garbage that you end up downloading last minute because you're like, oh, what song do I need to use for my channel? Actual commercial music. And the reason I wanted to do this interview was to give you an insight into the brand, the people behind the brand, and the guy at the top, the guy that founded it. We've spoke a lot about branding this month, and this sort of follows on from that, and it'll give you a good insight into how Licked are doing their best to help creators like you and me. So sit back, relax, get a notepad and pen, and enjoy the interview. Thank you very much for this this exclusive interview. I'm sure you're one of the busiest guys in the world at the minute, trying to obviously launch Licked and keep running it and getting everybody to see it. But if you could just give us a background on who you are and sort of where you come from.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, pleasure. Delighted to be here. Thanks for asking. Well, where have I come from? So I left uni and I went into television for 5 years. And that's where I first realized that you had to license music, because I got put to run and edit, and I got really excited, and I came in the next morning with all these CDs, and I said to the editor said to me, "What's that?" And I said, "That's the music I want to put in the show." And he said, "We have a music budget?" And I was like, no, I own this music. It's mine. He said, "Yeah, that's not how it works, dude." So, I mean, I'm going back a while now, but that's when I first had an understanding of the need for music licensing. And then after 5 years, I got into that business of music licensing. I moved to New York. I worked in stock music, production music, in New York, and then in LA. And we got to, it was just at the time when iTunes had really established itself, right? And sales, because of Napster earlier on, sales had fallen through the floor in commercial music artists' revenue streams, right? And so if you think about production music, stock music, as being an alternative to commercial, for the first time, we were able to go to big commercial acts and say, you know, I worked with people like Snoop and Quincy Jones and Massive Attack, and I was say to them, "Hey, do you know that Dan Smith from Bournemouth earned £250,000 last year from West Coast Hip Hop 4, right?" And you play that album to Snoop, and he goes, "That sounds like me." You're like, "Yes, Snoop, when people can't afford you, that's where they go." And so we got commercial artists to start recreating their own sound, or at least reproducing. They weren't allowed to write it. They weren't allowed to vocal on it, because then it becomes property of the label. And,
of course, yeah.
But I saw the power of commercial sounding one-stop shop licensing solutions, right? And then I came back to the UK after 5 years in New York and LA, and I've been back about 10 years now. And I've always still worked in music licensing. But when I learned, essentially, everyone I've ever licensed music to in the professional sphere, traditional media, whether it's film, TV, or advertising, there's a production company underneath. And when you realize that 2.8 billion people have now got a production company in their pocket, right? I've got one here, right? Then you think, well, actually, how would they go about licensing music? The world is a producer now. It's not just film studios and TV companies and ad agencies that need music licensing. And you realize that the only production resource that hadn't democratized, along with editing and shooting, was licensing for music. And I looked into YouTube and I learned about copyright claims and content ID. And I saw all the forums, everyone going, "What's a copyright claim? I just got my first big video and I didn't earn a penny." And I was like, wow, the commercial music sector is very good at shooting itself in the foot, right? I always say that when it comes to adopting innovation, the music industry has only ever been slightly ahead of the Amish, right? their typical response to new platforms, new formats, new revenue streams has been, no, we're quite happy where we are, and we'd like to wring every ounce of liquid out of the existing revenue stream before you start trying to disrupt us.
Yeah.
So, I just thought, well, if you could go and get all the world's music available, pre-cleared, one-stop shop for this new burgeoning production sector, then A, there's something really valuable there. But it really grated on me, Josh, that of all the production sectors in the world, the only one completely precluded from ever working with commercial music was the UGC sector. And I was like, that's nonsense. These people have all the audience the music industry wants.
Yep.
Right? And even if they know about copyright claims, and so they decide to try and act legally, they're left in a dead end.
Yeah. That'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
I thought that needs changing. I'm not willing to sit here in a world this was 2015 when I first conceived of it. Not willing to sit here and say, well, we can't build a solution. We can't put an end to copyright claims. We can't enable commercial music for the fastest growing, most influential demographic of producers in the world.
It's such an overwhelming, like when you put it into perspective like that, and it's such an overwhelming undertaking that you like, it's such an ambitious, in 2015 when you obviously thought the idea to where we are now in almost 2021, and it's actually like a tangible thing. Like I was gobsmacked. I'd never heard of it. So when one of your guys reached out to me initially, I was like, is this even possible? Because it's, especially in the video production sector, like I've got clients that'll ask me like, can we use this song on his video? And I'm like, yeah, if your pockets are deep enough. Like, but I'm thinking, if even to go down that route for like, I'd say for commercial video, not for YouTube, it's just a nightmare. And everyone thinks, oh, I want to use, the song off the radio. And I'm like, oh no. So when you reached out and said, right, it's possible for creators to use it now, like, let's get on this. So you referenced in one of your previous interviews that you basically wanted to create Spotify for creators.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where you are at the moment. You're like,
that's the goal.
Yeah.
That is the goal, right? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like the case for the music industry is so overwhelmingly persuasive that it annoys me that I have to argue with them, right? And increasingly, Josh, we are winning hearts and minds with the music industry, right?
Oh, that's good.
So I mean, the catalogue started this year at 10,000 tracks. It's now at 85,000. We're projecting 150,000 by the end of December. Wow. So there'll be almost the same amount of music that is on the platform joining the platform in the next 4 weeks, right?
Wow.
And when we started, the first thing we had to do was build Vouch, right? Vouch is the software that deals with a copyright claim.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first problem is, well, YouTube software presumes every use of music is an infringement.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to get the rights. So if I want to build somewhere to get the rights, I have to find a way of informing the API or Content ID that, hang on a minute, this song is legally available. You have to make a decision. Once we worked out we could do that, then you go, right, well, that's the magic sauce. All you need now is buy-in from the music industry.
Yeah.
I went and raised money off of that piece of software. I said, look what can happen, right? It was a test demo. I even just had a deck, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And one person who is my partner now, Simon, gave me the seed money to start building this. But the entire industry was saying to me, everyone I'd ever worked with in music, you're nuts. You'll never get it. You'll never get the majors. You'll never get Sony and Universal and Warner, and it will never happen. Don't waste your time. And even Simon, who was the only person brave enough to back me, said to me, I think you'll be able to get all the independents, but don't waste your time with the majors, right? So even the person backing the business didn't think it was possible for the vision that I had.
Yeah.
But we proved that it is an increasing possibility. To date, we have signed Universal, the biggest label in the world. We don't have all of their music, but it's slowly coming. They're starting to turn on the taps, right? Yeah. We've signed Warner Music recently. This is the third biggest label, right? The three majors are Universal, Sony, and Warner, and two of them are under contract with Licked. Add to that BMG, which is the 4th biggest label and publisher in the world. They've just moved to full blanket. So they are giving us everything they've ever released.
Wow.
And so you can see that this platform is going to go from 10,000 tracks to 85 that it is today, 85,000 to 150,000 end of the year. But you can quickly see how it gets to 500,000, 3 million, 10 million, right? And I don't understand. Every creator puts their heart and soul into each video. And none of them, you're a creator, you tell me if I'm wrong, right? No one plans the video, shoots the video, gives up all their spare time thinking about the video, edits the video, and then goes, you know what's going to make this video fly? A piece of royalty-free stock music from a company I've never heard of, right? You all, the first instinct is that track I love at the moment, or that track I loved last year, right? From this artist that I saw live. Like, you are music fans.
Yeah.
So it's just a win-win, right? If you can enable the music use for the audience that loves it, who is broadcasting to an audience that also loves it, then everyone wins.
It's so funny that you reference it like that as well. And especially for you to sort of foresee that all them years ago, when you look at the rise of TikTok this year, especially given like the current climate with COVID and things like that, how much people jumped on TikTok as a platform to create. And obviously they've got access to commercial tracks in that sort of ecosystem there. So to be able to take, and I see that all the time, like, can you take that style and put it onto YouTube? And previously the answer was no. And on one of my recent videos, it was Sunday Best, which is obviously on Licked as a platform. And it's like, it went viral because of TikTok. So I like put one of my TikTok onto YouTube using Sunday Best licensed through Licked. And I sort of like merged the two, and people were like, that's one of the coolest intros I've ever seen. I'm like, yeah, because like that's exactly what you can do when you've got access to good like commercial tracks. So like that was just a little hybrid of playing with them both and having the accessibility of a commercial track like that. So like I'm totally all in, and you were bang on. Like all creators want to do, especially like as a video creator, I'll be driving down the road, I'll listen to a track on the radio, and I can like vision like if I were to make a video or a music video, or just some sort of creation using that track, you can start visualizing it, but you can never really bring it to fruition, obviously, because we've never had access before.
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, that's a great anecdote. I love hearing stories like that. Because I always said to the team, listen, if we had the songs and you could tell every TikTok creator, hey, I know you got 1 million views on TikTok, but you didn't earn a penny.
Yep.
Right? You can license that track and put the video out on YouTube and earn from it.
Yep.
That's a winner. Now, listen, that's the other thing I said to the music industry. Like, you've got this problem on YouTube, right? You're not being heard. Like, this is TV. For Gen Z and millennials, YouTube is television.
Yep.
I said to them, if you never heard music you loved on radio, on TV when you were growing up, you would think that the system was broken. Right? And I was like, that's what's happening. So, trying to bridge that gap and say, look, it's YouTube now, but Facebook exists and just bought Instagram, going back 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because Instagram had just launched video, right? Facebook starts moving. My Facebook feed 10 years ago was just copy. It was just messages on Twitter. Then it became images, and now every post is a video, right? I was like, you've got a problem on YouTube and you're burying your head in the sand. 5 years from now, there's going to be Facebook, it's going to be Instagram, it's going to be, at that point, Snapchat and Vine, right? If you remember Vine and Periscope. And I was like, I guarantee you right now, there were 3 other UGC platforms being funded in Silicon Valley, whose names we don't know, that would be as big as all the platforms you've already got a problem on. This needs solving.
Yeah.
And luckily, although the industry as a whole resists innovation and change, there are some really good people at those companies whose buy-in you need, who agree with you.
Yeah.
And you can find a way to gain their trust and their traction. Then they sort of fight for you internally. And we've been able to work with some really good people at the majors who have helped us win that battle.
On the channel recently, I've been talking a lot about marketing branding for creators and for businesses. And a big thing that sort of stood out for me about Licked and why I wanted to interview you was one of the main lines, one of the first lines that I got reached out by a member of staff from Licked. And it basically said, we want to empower creators by supporting their channels and helping them grow whilst we sort of spread the word of Licked. as a company and as a brand and as an ethos, can you just sort of talk about like your thought process behind that? Because I absolutely love it. Like as soon as I heard that, I was like, I'm all in. Like,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Well, look, I think there's a couple of things to say there. One is that with Licked, certainly at the very outset, the service outperforms the product, right? Vouch, the claims clearance tech works. It works, right? And now these massive companies have taken our software and integrated it into their YouTube CMS. But the product is the catalog. And when someone says to you, chart music for your videos, and you go there and you don't find your favorite artist, it can be a bit disappointing, right? And so certainly when we were down at 10,000 tracks, that was happening more often than not. We're beginning to bridge that gap. So part of our thinking was, we are a small creator.
Yeah.
We're on a journey. And every small creator that works with us now, like the next pool of big creators is going to come from the small creators, right? The other thinking is we wanted to try and engender that sense of empathy with the small creator because we ourselves, like I said, are on that journey, right? And I'm not sure we've done a good enough job at this, if I'm honest, Josh. In fact, I've got some recent market research that told me that we're not good enough at this. And what I'm talking about is actually conveying to people that we are on a mission.
Yeah.
And on this mission, you can't launch on day one with 60 million songs. You have to get the buy-in of both sides, right?
Yes.
So I would, when someone comes to the platform and searches for Drake, and we don't have it, and we will soon, by the way. When we don't have it, they're a bit annoyed. But my point is, well, so am I, mate.
Yeah.
It's not my fault. I've been arguing for Drake since day one. What we need to engender with our user base is we can change the world together. You commit to using Licked, not in every video and not every bit of music in every video, right? But understand that every license you do on Licked breeds confidence with the music industry and they release more music.
Yeah.
And every time I can go to them and say, look how many thousands of people searched for Drake. And the numbers start to become compelling.
Yeah.
Then they go, oh, what's your average license fee? And you tell them, they go, oh, so that times that means that if you'd had that one song, we'd have got this much revenue. Yes. So we are on a journey as a platform, right? So I think understanding that we wanted to engender the sense of movement with younger creators, smaller creators, I should say, not younger, because we want to grow with them.
Yep.
That we created a pricing model that meant it would only ever be a relative percentage of your estimated earnings, and that it's not fair to charge you, Josh, the same amount as PewDiePie to use the same song in your video, right? And again, I think that model will iterate over time. I think we'd like to one day just be in a rev share, right? If and when that's possible, and say, well, music is X% of earnings, right? If it's used. So yes, the widest part of the market is the burgeoning creator, right? The emerging creator. There's much more creators not monetizing than there are monetizing. And so let's test the pool and work with these guys to help grow their channels. That's also where you're going to get the best feedback. Like, oh, I used commercial music and it cost me money, but I got more engagement. More engagement and comments and watch time pushes me into the algorithm.
Yep.
And I get more views, right? And B, that we had empathy for the small creator because we were essentially in the same boat. We were in a position where it looked insurmountable to achieve what we wanted to achieve and be in the position we were in. And we thought we'd work with those people. I think the last point is, it's very difficult to win this market. There's not a lot of people that have done it. And influencer marketing exists, but that's typically a brand that wants to use an influencer to speak to their audience.
Yeah.
But our target market is the influencer, not their audience, right? Unless it's someone like you. And your audience is other creators.
Yeah. Which is interesting, the way that you were obviously explaining all that. And that's the reason why I wanted to have this, like, and I really appreciate your time because I can only imagine how busy you are trying to run it. But I understand the value of personal brand versus a company brand. So a company can look very faceless and very like corporate. So Virgin, if you look at the numbers, I'm into marketing, you know, Richard Branson's got twice the amount of followers as Virgin. Same for Tim Cook and Apple. And that's why I think it's so important as for creators to understand Licked as a brand or any company, and they need to understand the personal brand and the personal aspect behind that company, which is why I wanted to speak to you, which is, again, leads on to my next question, which is on the Licked YouTube page, you've done content in Santa Monica last year where you and your team were running around Santa Monica, having fun. It was like proper YouTube content with obviously amazing tracks played in the background that sort of fed into this one very YouTuber style YouTube piece of content. And are we going to see more of that? Because obviously that is aligned with exactly what you said about bridging that gap. And obviously when a faceless brand wants to speak to an influencer to see their audience, and you're actually just trying to get to, I guess, the influencer to get them to buy in, are you going to look at creating more content like that to showcase sort of you and your team?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you know, the current environments make that quite difficult, but we would love to be doing more of it. And actually, everyone got such a kick out of it. And the fun you saw us having in that video was real. Like it was
you can tell,
yeah. Yeah, but also for me, like it was the first time I had ever taken anyone with me on an overseas trip. Right? I normally go out and fight these battles on my own in dark, angry meeting rooms. But to have my staff there, a lot of them had never been to LA, and to take a day and just go, let me show you around LA because I used to live there, right? And they planned all the activities and the filming and everything. But it was just lovely to see them get off a plane and sit on Santa Monica Beach and go, right, let's do something and actually enjoy the job that they've got. You know? So yes, we'd very much like to do more of that. And I think we could do a better job of putting humanizing the business a bit more. And I think that speaks back to getting the message across about the revolution.
Yes.
Right? I can't do this alone. We can't do it alone. And until recently, I mean, we have been doing it alone.
Yeah.
Like until we get sort of a tipping point in user base, we'll consider ourselves doing it alone. But each Josh Gudgeon that we get that is an advocate and that licenses and loves what we're doing and understands the message, the more chance we've got of success. But I've been going into music room conference rooms and having stand-up arguments on behalf of YouTubers before we ever put out a piece of content. And that's what I want people to try and understand, that, listen, this is it's a mission. It's a mission that if we all band together 5 years from now, not even 3 years from now, we'll go, do you remember when we couldn't use music because of copyright claims? And it would just look like 2010 to 2020 were the dark ages, right? And that's what I want to get to. But I can't do it alone. That's why I'm raising money to build my team. But as far as I'm concerned, every one of our users is part of our team.
Yeah.
Like every time they license, they help me make the case to the music industry that I should get you the artist that you really want.
It's such an interesting analogy, the way that you've just said that, because that's where I mean, again, I'm like a super small channel, you know, we've just tipped over 3,000 subscribers, but that initial push, like the hardest to get were 1,000, you know, it took me 6 months to get 1,000, roughly 6 months, but then it was 3 months later, I got another 1,000, 3 months later, I got another 1,000, but to get those subscribers, to build that brand, to build that community, it literally is commenting back to every single person, replying to every single DM, conversations after conversations, building community, which is, it's what you're doing now. You're having the conversation with me, which then people get to, it humanizes you as a CEO and as a leader of Licked. But so you're just having to just chip away. And it's, what you're doing is basically trying to build a YouTube channel, but a YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that it?
We've both given birth to babies, right? And we've got to nurture them to adulthood.
Yeah.
And make sure that they don't get hit by a car crossing the road when they're 5 years old, right? Like, it's a crass analogy, but you get what I'm saying.
Understand, yeah. I love it. Honestly, Paul, I know we've gone over our time here, but that has been it's been an amazing conversation. You've already answered my last question.
I don't have a hard stop, so we can do this as long as you like.
Yeah, no, I think like I've got one last thing to say, which is like, so I think you've already answered my last question, which is what is the future of Licked? But what are your final comments for anybody watching, smaller creators, bigger creators? You know, What would be your final comments to those guys?
Well, stay tuned, right? I get really emotional when I see acts that I grew up loving go live on Licked, because I will always remember everyone telling me that, like, laughing at me, that I was wasting my time, that I was losing people money, that it would never happen, right? And then suddenly you get a label calling you, go, can we get this song out on the day it's released, right? So I think the artist you love is more and more likely to be live and available for claims free for your video sooner rather than later, right? So stay tuned with what is actually on the platform and look at what we're announcing on emails if you are registered. In terms of the future of the platform, I think, there's the production music piece. We want to add production music under a subscription. But I think that we very firmly have one eye on other platforms. And we're aware that creators broadcast cross-platform. And I want the platform to be the place where you can come and say, not only do I want this song, but I want it for my YouTube video, and I want it for the cut down on Facebook or the promotional piece on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we are in talks with all of those platforms. Unfortunately, they aren't ready for our software, right? You think about the head start YouTube's had. For our software, it works within YouTube's systems.
Yeah.
Those other platforms are playing catch up. So the moment they are ready, we will be ready. And that will be probably also the moment that they start to enable creator monetization. There or thereabouts, right? Because someone like Facebook or Instagram at the moment, they're paying money so that you can use commercial music, but they won't keep doing that. They're doing that because they're not ready. They don't want to wait to be ready before the music industry lets them play ball. So they've now persuaded a whole generation of creators that on our platform you can use music. Well, once they enable the music industry to identify that music and claim it, you won't be able to use it without a license, right?
Yeah.
So multi-platform, production music, and I think podcasts. You know, again, it's any kind of democratized production where any self-starter can say, I want to broadcast something. There should be the ability for them to get music to license for that production. And podcast is growing about as fast as YouTube did 10 years ago as a space. And it's almost impossible to get the legal rights for the licensing on it. So that's where we're heading. I think we'd like to get away long-term from even like a la carte licensing for commercial music. I'd like to be able to turn around to the music industry and say, well, look what market share we were able to do by understanding the production cycle of a creator, and that they do need production music and they don't want to pay X amount or not know what their music costs are going to be month on month. Yeah. Let's create a premium subscription that includes commercial music. And more, I'm finding the music industry is more and more receptive to that.
Yeah.
There was a report recently, literally a month ago, Josh, in the music industry that said that user-generated content was responsible in 2019 for $1 billion in revenue to the music industry. And that by 2022, that is expected to be about 6 billion, right? Now, whilst that's a massive multiple, because there'll be more platforms delivering revenue, it also means the problem they have on YouTube will be multiplied by the same factor. Yeah. Which means you're going to miss out on all the influencers, you're going to miss out on their audiences, you're going to miss out on all the advocacy of your artist's fans just wanting to celebrate the artist. And if we can provide that solution so that everyone can win and everyone benefit, then we all win.
Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure, honestly. And I 100% back you and the team and the platform. Like, genuinely, it's always been a pleasure to sort of speak to the Lick team and from day one to be able to support a small channel. Yeah, you've always got my backing, and I'm sure like my audience will be behind you on that as well. So right. One creator at a time.
Well, if you ever want to talk again, just let me know. Like, I like having these conversations. I like speaking to our customers. You know, like if anyone's got any questions for me, if you want to do a follow-up to this, because the same question came up 50 times, we'll answer it.
Yeah, totally. I'd be well game for that.
Yeah, I don't want to be distant from our user base or potential user base. I want to be front and center and learn everything that they need from us, So
yeah, and for those that are watching, the Licked has got a community Facebook group, which is amazing as well. It's always rammed with content, live streams. So if you're a creator, get on that. Well, what a whirlwind that was. So just as a bit of insider scoop, we actually finished that call. So we finished the video that you've just seen about 40 minutes ago. It was only going to be a 10-15 minute interview, and it obviously overran. And then we've just spoke for, nearly an hour after that. Genuinely, like, Licked was the first company that ever reached out to me as a creator to support the channel, and we spoke about it in that video. It's our responsibility as creators to support the platform. It's not a massive corporate, as you would assume. It's a bunch of people that have created this platform to try and bring music to us creators, and they are literally fighting the good fight for us. And the backing that they need is us as creators to use the platform, like physically go, download your track. I think Paul's an absolutely great guy. All the team from Licked have always been amazing. So I genuinely hope you enjoyed that conversation. You got to see a little bit of an insight to the man, the co-founder behind Licked. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a comment below. Let us know what you enjoyed. Drop us a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'll be partnering with Licked in the future. And I just genuinely hope you go check out the platform, because they are really trying to do a good thing for us creators to get us hands on commercial tracks without getting demonetized, so we can actually generate a revenue and use proper music. So thank you for watching. I'll be back next week with another video as always. And we'll see you there.